History is not what happened. History is simply what survived the fires of the victors. For nearly 2,000 years, human consciousness has been directed by a carefully edited script. We have been taught what to believe, how to pray, and who holds the keys to the sacred. But in December 1945, deep in the upper Egypt desert, near the massive cliffs of Nag Hammadi, the earth refused to keep the secrets of the empire any longer. A local peasant, digging for fertilizer, struck a sealed earthenware jar. Inside that jar were 13 papyrus codices, manuscripts hidden away by early mystics who chose to bury the truth in the sand rather than watch it be consumed by the flames of an emerging Orthodox church. These texts did not merely offer a different perspective on early Christianity. They shattered the foundation of institutional religion. And among these forbidden discoveries, along with fragments found in separate archaeological excavations, was a text that caused profound panic within the theological halls of power, the Gospel of Mary Magdalene. But when scholars began to translate this recovered treasure, a devastating realization came to light. The manuscript was physically mutilated. Pages 1 through 6 were missing. Pages 11 through 14 were gone. Someone in the distant past had taken a blade to the papyrus. They didn't just disagree with her words. They systematically cut them out of existence. Why? What was written on those severed pages that was so dangerous it required total erasure? To understand the magnitude of this crime against human memory, you must first understand the lie you were told about Mary Magdalene. The institutional church spent centuries branding her as a reformed prostitute, a weeping sinner reduced to a footnote of history. They did this because a broken, repentant woman is easy to manage. She fits the narrative of a church that demands submission. But the forbidden Gnostic Gospels paint a completely different picture. Mary Magdalene was not a passive observer. She was the apostle to the apostles. She was the one who didn't just listen to the words of Jesus, but actually understood the cosmic architecture behind them. She was the keeper of the inner mysteries. And what she knew was so radical, so profoundly liberating, that it threatened to dismantle the very concept of religious authority before it could even take root. Today, we are pulling back the heavy, blood-stained curtain of institutional history. We are going into the depth of the texts they tried to destroy. We are going to examine the exact mechanics of the Gnostic awakening, why rigid systems are terrified of the living depth of the sacred feminine, and what those lost pages were trying to tell you about your own internal sovereignty. In the surviving pages of her gospel, we find a community of disciples trapped in grief and fear after the departure of the Master. They are weeping, terrified of the world, and afraid of the persecution that awaits them. It is at this precise moment of despair that Mary Magdalene stands up, comforts them, and says, "Let us praise his greatness, for he prepared us and made us into true human beings." Levi looks at her and admits that the Savior loved her more than the rest of women. He asks her to relate the words the Savior told her, which she remembers but the others have not heard. Mary then describes a cosmic vision she received from Christ, and what he revealed to her in that private transmission looks nothing like the religion of laws, sin, and judgment that the Orthodox world came to preach. He taught her about the ascent of the soul to the layers of the false universe. Mary details an internal journey where the soul must pass by the cosmic gatekeepers of this material realm, the parasitic forces the Gnostics call the Archons. She describes the soul confronting the first power, which is darkness, then the second power, which is desire, then the third power, which is ignorance, and finally, the fourth power, which is the wrath of flesh. In this forbidden text, salvation is not a legal transaction or a reward for blind obedience. Salvation is an act of supreme awakening. The soul does not escape its earthly prison by submitting to an external church, a priest, or a set of human rules. The soul escapes by realizing its own divine origin, by remembering the light it carried before the material matrix was even formed. As the soul ascends, it answers each of the Archons with direct knowledge, declaring its freedom from their control. The soul tells the power of desire, "You did not see me, nor did you recognize me. I serve you as a garment, but you did not know who I was." And having said this, the soul goes on its way rejoicing, returning to the eternal fullness of the pleroma. But when Mary finishes recounting this beautiful, terrifying vision of cosmic liberation, a massive psychological rupture occurs among the listeners. The disciples do not celebrate this revelation. Instead, They react with hostility, jealousy, and disbelief. Peter, representing the exact mindset that would later build the oppressive, rigid institutions of the world, speaks out against her. He asks the other disciples, did he really speak privately with a woman, and not openly to us? Are we to turn about and all listen to her? Did he prefer her to us? Andrew joins Peter, stating that these teachings seem to be strange ideas. This moment, frozen in the fragments of the suppressed papyrus, marks the exact birth of the false system. It was a historical clash between two completely opposing visions of the divine. Peter and the Orthodox disciples wanted outward structure, hierarchy, political power, and an earthly institution governed by laws, threats, and male authority. They wanted a religion where people needed to go through a priest to reach God. Mary Magdalene, however, represented the pure Gnostic reality, an unmediated, direct internal connection to the source of all light, requiring no popes, no bishops, and no cathedrals. To build their empire, the architects of orthodoxy had to erase her. They had to slice her words out of the book, change her story, and control the spiritual memory of humanity. This systematic suppression of the sacred feminine and the erasure of Gnostic wisdom did not just alter ancient history. It engineered the very matrix of the modern world. By cutting out the blueprint of direct internal awakening, the builders of the system created a civilization of perpetual dependency. They designed reality where you are conditioned to always look outside of yourself for salvation, for validation, for meaning, and for completion. You look to institutions, to social structures, and to superficial connections, unaware that you are searching for a home you were forced to forget. This is exactly why modern life feels so profoundly exhausting and spiritually empty. We live in an overstimulated age where our energy is constantly harvested by a false system that rewards outward compliance while starving our inner essence. We are taught to ignore our intuition, to numb our existential grief, and to treat our spiritual hunger as if it were a psychological flaw. But that deep ache inside you, that feeling that something ancient is missing, is not a malfunction. It is your divine spark refusing to be fully extinguished by the matrix. It is a living memory of Sophia trying to break through the layers of distortion and guide you back to the pleroma. You cannot heal this inner fragmentation using the tools of the world that broke. You cannot fix a cosmic exile with material substitutes. The only way out is to turn the search entirely inward, to reclaim your own gnosis, and to remember what was buried beneath centuries of institutional control. If you feel a deep, undeniable resonance with these suppressed truths, and you are ready to move past surface-level answers and step out of the exhaustion loop, I invite you to explore the practical path of return. I have left a link to the digital edition of the Sophia Awakening Guide right at the top of the pinned comment below this video. This long-form guide is a comprehensive, step-by-step internal map designed specifically for those who feel the ancient call waking up inside them and are ready to restore their spiritual sovereignty, understand the real signs of awakening, and heal the divided self. The pages of Mary's Gospel were cut by human hands, but the eternal truth can never be destroyed. Sophia arises wherever depth, silence, and remembrance are chosen over compliance and numbness. The system can control the historical record, but it has no power over the untouchable light carried within your soul. Stop waiting for an external savior and start remembering the kingdom that lives within you. Thank you for listening to this transmission. The guide to your awakening is waiting in the comments below. Remember what they wanted you to forget.